as well. Yeah.
I think the other thing that AirAsia long haul we do have, and it's more of the network synergy, because we have so many AOCs in each of the countries. So the ability for us to connect X to each of our local AOCs is actually a tremendous benefit for flying in and then being able to connect domestically.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, it's always tough when you're such a big company. We're trying to integrate a little bit more between the X model and the AirAsia model, and then sharing some of the cost and the scale. So I think that's a benefit for us as well.
Yeah, that's very
but there is some complexity associated with that as well.
Yeah.
You can't be too precious too. When you fly 6 or 7 hours away from home, you run beyond the brand recognition that you've built up in your home market. You're dealing with very different cultures. You're dealing with very different travel styles. In North Asia, it's very common for people to travel in groups, for example. In Southeast Asia or Australia, it's not. People travel by booking through travel agencies in those markets. In Australia and Singapore, almost everyone books online. So you can't be too precious about what is the pure model. What is the model that works in the market that you fly to? And everyone that tells you should be doing it this way, listen politely but ignore if necessary.
I think that's really interesting. So it's the model that works. And I wanted to pull in Albert on this one, because the other thing that we've seen in Asia Pacific is we've seen full service carriers launching effectively low-cost subsidiaries and actually doing it and making a success of it. So Qantas with Jetstar, Garuda with CityLink. Albert, I wanted to ask you, what's the you were spun off from Garuda in, I think, 2012. What's the relationship now between the mothership and CityLink? And are you cannibalizing Garuda? How does that whole competition thing work?
Okay, thank you. So when we want to really launch CityLink at the end of 2012, when we want to spin off, we have one thing in mind, that most of the LCCs that was formed by FSC at that time failed, most of them. So we just looking at ways that to make sure that there is a right way to tap into that segment of market. So CityLink is formed as an independent LCC. So we can decide the network, the routes, the ticket price, and then the marketing, sales, and everything. So it is an independent operation. So what needs to be done that is required by CityLink to fight against their competitor is there. So I think that is the thing that makes CityLink, I think, from almost zero at the time, at the end of 2012, to become 36 aircraft right now, and already profitable this year. So I think that is the key. But since it become bigger and bigger, I think there are a lot of things that has to be going forward to be done more as a joint between Garuda and CityLink in network, in this distribution. We have done in the past some of the big ticket item purchasing to get the benefit of economy of scale, but I think going forward more and more has to be done. In terms of cannibalizing, that is one thing that we always monitor, I think month by month, week by week, so that just to make sure that it is not that big. Yes, there are some cannibalization, but we look at each route by route. This is also something that was presented yesterday, I think, by Mackenzie. We look route by route and then detailed analysis and come up with I think below 5%, 3.5% of our Garuda's passengers that move to CityLink. So it is not that big, it's still manageable. So I think we are okay with that.
That's very interesting. And I think you now account for something like 30% of the combined revenues of Garuda and CityLink. I think you're about 30% of the pie, which is an amazing growth. Yeah.
More or less. And then with now 234 flights a day, almost 10 million passengers, and then 30%, almost 30% increase passengers year on year. So,
yeah, it's amazing. Spring, one of the things that was very interesting, you've got your Japan subsidiary, and I think you're the first new startup in Japan not to be associated with one of the sort of bigger players. So you're a bit of a standalone in terms of alliances. What do you see as the benefits and disbenefits of alliances, and are you planning to tie up with one of the alliances in the longer term, or what's Spring's strategy on alliances? I'm just interested to hear.
I think as for the LCC's cost is the key, is the driven for the success. So we think for Spring's point of view, we believe the alliances can expand the market, can expand our customer base. But the point is that the complexity is the disaster for LCCs. So for our point of view, we definitely because today our major market is China. No matter it's Spring Japan or Spring China, our focus is still on the China market. So because there's a lot of there's a lot of limitation for the issues as far right. So I think the purpose for Spring to go abroad is to try to transfer more Chinese passengers, Chinese travelers to outside the world. That's why our strategy is we're just follow this philosophy.
Very interesting. And just maybe, Jim, talking to you about AirAsia, because I think you've got 9 different subsidiaries across the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand. You've got the AirAsia brand, you've got the AirAsia X brand. Do you think, are you going to consolidate those up eventually? What will happen? And do you think the ASEAN single market, which gets a lot of airtime, is that going to be a significant sort of benefit to your group, to the AirAsia group?
Yeah, so I actually think that, what drove this, of course, it's not a business decision, it's a regulatory decision.
Yeah.
So to go into a country and have an entity, you actually have to have a separate local entity majority owned by a local partner. So that's purely regulatory. But I think actually that creates an entry barrier. And this is actually something that has helped us because we have been able to set up, as you say, 9 different subsidiaries around the region. And that creates not only the economy of scale, but like you were talking about, Campbell, the difficulty of going to a market when you don't know it and you got to create the marketing again. Well, we have the local entities in each of these markets. So that's our benefit. We fly into each other's market. We create these webs, across the region. So that's actually been a competitive advantage for us. So there's not any plan to consolidate, nor could we, because of the regulatory environment. What I think may change that, if there's an ASEAN market, and it depends on where the governments go with this, if there's really a consolidated ASEAN market where anybody in ASEAN can set up hubs in different countries, that's basically replicating the AirAsia AOC model within ASEAN. But I haven't heard yet that that's and Campbell, and maybe you guys know better than me, I don't know what the goal is, but I don't think there's an agreement yet that foreign carriers can come into any country within ASEAN and set up operations separately.
Currently, the liberalization that is foreseen, as far as I understand it, is liberalization of the main cities, the capital cities in the ASEAN countries. It's not the ability to set up airlines in other countries and domestic routes. So I think the style of open skies that we see in the European Union, for example, are a long time coming to this part of the world, if they ever do. But I think you hit the nail on the head. AirAsia has done a fantastic job of establishing this pan-Asian brand, the network density, the brand recognition, and it is a competitive advantage. I guess the challenge for the rest of us is how do we respond to that? And I don't think that there's a clear solution yet.
Stu.
What I want to add is that although we call we are all ASEAN country, but the cultures are quite different between one with another. So I think for for low cost, it's very difficult for a airline. Because I think for Spring's point of view, we think the different cultures which needs different products. So it's very difficult. But for LCC, it's as simple as possible. The simplicity is also very important. So we are also considering, but for because Asia is very big, it's huge, and that's why we believe focus on one market is very good for us.
Well, what's been interesting, I suppose, and you mentioned it earlier, Albert, and I know it's true of Scoot as well, where you've got the frequent flyer programs sort of feeding one another between other group companies. I guess that must be a benefit for, if you can tie up with Garuda on that end. And I think Scoot, you tie up with, I think, Chris Flyer. So there are benefits, but I guess they're few and far between, or you have to look at them very carefully.
I think that's a fair characterization there. The benefits are there, but they're relatively small. Our principal competitive weapon is price.
Yeah.
The secondary competitive weapon is the onboard product and service and choice of things that you can choose to avail yourself of. Frequent flyer really, the value to us is more the data that is acquired through frequent flyer than the attraction of being able to offer frequent flyer points themselves.
Well, that's interesting. So it's establishing what the relationship with the customer.
Establishing the relationship with the customer, being able to reach the customer, being able to preempt the customer's desires and how they want their product tailored. The number of miles they earn themselves is relatively immaterial.
Yeah.
On the redemption side, there's a little bit of an advantage because you're able to tap a pool of people that have accrued miles to travel on your service, but as a proportion of the number of people we carry, it's very small.
And you all have Spring. You have a frequent flyer as well.
We just started we just the Rhee, which is called the Spring Plus or Spring. Yes, we do have us, but only focus on the only focus on the for it's so because our products are very. It's very simple even for the even for your frequent flight.
Yeah, interesting. So. Moving on, talking about now other revenues that are available to LCCs, and one of the things I thought was so interesting, we were talking about this earlier, is that Spring has recently purchased a hotel in Nagoya, a 350-room hotel, and I'm thinking, is that an LCC activity, running hotels? Could you talk a bit about that? And then we're going to come to you, Jim, because what I discovered earlier, ladies and gentlemen, was that apparently not only have Spring purchased a hotel, but also AirAsia. I'm wondering whether this is a new activity for LCCs.
Spring Airlines does not invest in hotel, but Spring's mother company, Spring Travel.
Oh, it's the mother company.
Yeah, Spring Travel. First of all, we every year for the just last year, we sent more than 500,000 tourists to Japan, and nowadays the hotel price goes up very fast, and it's very difficult to find hotels. That's why I believe it's a good investment for Spring Travel. Secondly, and since now it's the hotel is under capacity.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for traveler to find a room. That's why it will help Spring Travel a lot to control some room.
So it's partially an investment, and it's partially the fact that obviously you can get slots very easily at Nagoya to operate your aircraft, but then there's a room issue on the ground, so it helps you with room availability as well. How about AirAsia? So this was...
Well, so it's similar. AirAsia actually doesn't own the hotels. There's a group, I think everybody here probably knows Toon. So Toon Group separately owns hotels. So From a airline perspective, and I don't know if we'll get into this topic, but what should LCCs offer? I'm still a real passionate believer that you have to keep the offer simple. And I understand Scoot is definitely a different model and it's long haul. For the short haul, and everybody's trying to talk about hybrid models and let's offer this and let's offer this and let's increase complexity, let's increase cost, but we can't monetize it. I think the carrier that is disciplined focuses on cost first, worries about fair price, on-time performance, and has good customer service. I think they're going to win, honestly, in the long run. So, trying to get too complex with your product offering. So the airline needs to focus on that real, true kind of world-class LCC model. But what we think about it, and maybe because we have a different business model, when we go into countries, and I think of Japan, because I just set up AirAsia Japan, we look beyond just the flight. We think of our customers, we think of their life, and it's not even necessarily travel related. So when we go to shareholders in Japan, we say, hey, let's look for partners who could add beyond just the airplane portion of that, right? So we will, in Japan, we partner with Rakuten, which is kind of the Amazon of Japan. We partner with Noebia, which is a cosmetic company. We have a partner, Alpen Sports, which is a sporting goods company. And so we think beyond just the journey itself, the airline journey for our partners, and Tune Hotel as well. Obviously, people need places to stay, so hotel makes sense. But it's not from an AirAsia perspective.
Do you actually market these hotels and these add-on features? So do they form your revenue, or do you pass customers through to them, or?
It depends on the partnership. There can be some revenue sharing depending on the setup you have, but it's really passing on customers to partners.
Yeah.
And thinking of a larger value for a wider set of investors and partners.
Very interesting. Stephen.
For Spring's point of view, we like to do something we're good at, because we're not familiar with the hotel business. That's why. But when we enter into Japan, that's a hotel. The land price, hotel price is very low, and we believe we have such experience before when Spring travel fly to Sanya, which is Hainan Island. The Hainan, which is it's not a destination yet, and after we enter into Sanya, the Sanya not only Spring send tourists there, but also the other airlines also send tourists there. And today, the Sanya has become major travel destination, and now the land price goes. We push the price indeed. And finally, we think Spring should not only we sell in ticket, but also we should get benefit from what we helping the local government. That's why we're not only investing just in Japan, but also in other places. Before we enter into the market, we try to buy some territory and get benefit from that.
Very interesting. The theme of this discussion has been, where do we go from here? And I'm sure everybody in the audience is thinking, where do we go from here? We go for coffee. But before we do that, I'd like to just ask each of you if in one sentence you could say, in your opinion, where do you think we're going from here? What's the big challenges and the big opportunities for you and for aviation looking forward? So maybe, Jim, we start with you. Where do we go from here?
Well, I still think, and there's so many business models out there, I still think the carrier that is really going to have the discipline, and you guys, I think I heard you probably agree with me, still for LCCs, the lowest cost structure in the long run is going to win. So you have all these entrants and players, but I think you got to still focus on cost, simple model, simple offering, but be on time and have good customer service. That's going to win. I think the challenge, right now, because of low fuel prices, everybody is kind of doing well. But I can promise you, there were a lot of companies before fuel prices went down, they were ready to go out of business.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I still think, and if that changes, there's still going to be a culling out of a lot of companies with not good business models and people who aren't disciplined around cost.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, we had one carrier in India that actually went bust pretty well, and then I think the government held their creditors at bay, and then in the end, the fuel price fell, that kind of returned them back to the black. But absent that, they wouldn't be around anymore. So you're absolutely right. The fuel has a massive impact on this area. Albert.